He even choked. Lizaveta Prokofyevna said coldly and sharply, studying him with stern curiosity. Well, dear boy, enough of you. It's time to go. And allow me, my dear sir, for my part, to point out to you, Ivan Fyodorovitch, having lost all patience, suddenly said vexedly, that my wife is here visiting Prince Lev Nikolaevich, our mutual friend and neighbor, and that in any case it is not for you, young man, to judge Lizaveta Prokofyevna's actions, nor to refer aloud and in my teeth to what is written on my face. No, sir. And if my wife stayed here, he went on, growing more and more vexed with every word, it was sooner out of amazement, sir, and an understandable contemporary curiosity to see some strange young people. And I myself stayed, as I stop sometimes in the street when I see something that can be looked upon as a rarity, prompted Yevgeny Pavlovitch. Excellent and right, rejoiced His Excellency, who had become a bit muddled in his comparison, precisely as a rarity. But in any case, for me what is most amazing and even chagrining, if it may be put that way grammatically, is that you, young man, were not even able to understand that Lizaveta Prokofyevna stayed with you now because you are ill, if you are indeed dying, out of compassion, so to speak, on account of your pathetic words, sir, and that no sort of mud can cling to her name, qualities, and importance, Lizaveta Prokofyevna. The flushed general concluded, if you want to go, let us take leave of our good prince. Thank you for the lesson, General, Ippolit interrupted gravely and unexpectedly, looking at him pensively. Let's go, Mamun, how long must this continue? Aglaya said impatiently and wrathfully, getting up from her chair. 2 more minutes, my dear Ivan Fyodorovitch, if you permit. Lizaveta Prokofyevna turned to her husband with dignity. It seems to me that he's all feverish and simply raving. I'm convinced by his eyes, he cannot be left like this. Lev Nikolaevich. May he spend the night here, so that they won't have to drag him to Petersburg tonight? Cher Prince, are you bored? She suddenly turned to Prince Shch. For some reason. Come here, Alexandra. Your hair needs putting right, my dear. She put right her hair, which did not need putting right, and kissed her. That was all she had called her for. I considered you capable of development. Hippolyte spoke again, coming out of his pensiveness. Yes. This is what I wanted to say. He was glad, as if he had suddenly remembered. Burdovsky here sincerely wants to protect his mother, isn't that so? And it turns out that he disgraces her. The prince here wants to help Burdovsky, offers him, with purity of heart, his tender friendship and his capital, and is maybe the only one among you all who does not feel loathing for him, and here they stand facing each other like real enemies, ha, ha, ha. You all hate Burdovsky, because in your opinion his attitude towards his mother is not beautiful and graceful, right? 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 And you're all terribly fond of the beauty and gracefulness of forms, you stand on that alone, isn't it so? I've long suspected it was on that alone. Well, no, then, that maybe not one of you has loved his mother as Burdovsky has. You, Prince, I know, sent money to Burdovsky's mother on the quiet, through Ganchka, and I'll bet, he giggled hysterically, I'll bet that Burdovsky himself will now accuse you of indelicacy of form and disrespect for his mother, by God, he will, ha, ha, ha. Here he again lost his breath and began to cough. Well, is that all? Is that all now? Have you said it all? Well, go to bed now, you have a fever, Lizaveta Prokofyevna interrupted impatiently, not taking her worried eyes off him. Ah, Lord. He's still talking. It seems you're laughing? Why must you keep laughing at me? I've noticed that you keep laughing at me. He suddenly turned anxiously and irritably to Yevgeny Pavlovich. The latter was indeed laughing. I merely want to ask you, Mr. Hippolyte. Sorry, I've forgotten your last name. Mr. Terentiev, said the prince. Yes, Terentiev, thank you, prince, it was mentioned earlier, But it slipped my mind. I wanted to ask you, Mr. Terentiev, is it true what I've heard, that you are of the opinion that you need only talk to the people through the window for a quarter of an hour, and they will at once agree with you in everything and follow you at once? I may very well have said it, Hippolyte replied, as if trying to recall something. Certainly I said it. He suddenly added, becoming animated again and looking firmly at Yevgeny Pavlovitch. And what of it? Precisely nothing, merely for my own information, to add it all up. Yevgeny Pavlovitch fell silent, but Hippolyte went on looking at him in impatient expectation. Well, are you finished, or what? Lizaveta Prokofyevna turned to Yevgeny Pavlovitch. Finish quickly, dear boy, it's time he went to bed. Or don't you know how? She was terribly vexed. I wouldn't mind adding, Yevgeny Pavlovitch went on with a smile, that everything I've heard from your comrades, Mr. Terentiev, and everything you've just explained, and with such unquestionable talent, boils down, in my opinion, to the theory of the triumph of rights, before all, and beyond all, and even to the exclusion of all else, and perhaps even before analyzing what makes up these rights. Perhaps I'm mistaken? Of course you're mistaken, and I don't even understand you. Go on. There was also a murmur in the corner. Lebedev's nephew muttered something in a half-whisper. There's not much more, Yevgeny Pavlovitch went on. I merely wanted to observe that from this case it's possible to jump over directly to the right of force, that is, to the right of the singular fist and personal wanting, as, incidentally, has happened very often in this world. Proudhon stopped at the right of force. 41 In the American War, many of the most progressive liberals declared themselves on the side of the plantation owners, in this sense, that Negroes are Negroes, inferior to the white race, and consequently the right of force belongs to the whites. Well? So you don't deny the right of force? Go on. You're consistent, then. I only wanted to observe that from the right of force to the right of tigers and crocodiles and even to Danilov and Gorsky is not a long step. I don't know, go on. Ippolit was barely listening to Yevgeny Pavlovitch, and even if he said well and go on to him, it seemed to be more from an old, adopted habit of conversation, and not out of attention and curiosity. There's nothing more, that's all. Incidentally, I'm not angry with you, Ippolit suddenly concluded quite unexpectedly and, hardly with full consciousness, held out his hand, even with a smile. Yevgeny Pavlovitch was surprised at first, but touched the hand held out to him with a most serious air, as though receiving forgiveness. I cannot help adding, he said in the same ambiguously respectful tone, my gratitude to you for the attention with which you have allowed me to speak, because it has been my oft-repeated observation that our liberal has never yet been able to allow anyone to have his own convictions and not reply at once to his opponent with abuse or even worse. That is perfectly right, General Ivan Fyodorovich observed and, putting his hands behind his back, with a most bored air retreated to the door of the terrace, where he proceeded to yawn with vexation. Well, enough for you, dear boy, Lizaveta Prokofyevna suddenly announced to Yevgeny Pavlovitch, I'm tired of you. It's time. Ippolit suddenly stood up with a preoccupied and all but frightened look, gazing around in perplexity. I've kept you. I wanted to tell you I thought that everyone for the last time it was a fantasy. One could see that he would become animated in bursts, suddenly coming out of what was almost real delirium for a few moments, and with full consciousness would suddenly remember and speak, mostly in fragments, perhaps thought up and memorized much earlier, in the long, boring hours of illness, in bed, alone, sleepless. So, farewell. He suddenly said sharply. Do you think it's easy for me to say farewell to you?